I sat next to the Queen by accident, and she took my hand and said, "Don't get up, stay here." Skybridge Station hung above a pale blue moon like a silver ring. It was not a planet, not a ship, but something in between, an old diplomatic hub rebuilt again and again by species that did not like to share space, but still needed to talk. Elias was not a famous negotiator. He was not a war hero or a scientist or a politician. He was the kind of person who made sure food arrived on time, that power cells were charged, that translation devices had fresh batteries, and that visiting delegates did not accidentally break a door that opened sideways. He had been sent because the Terran delegation was small and careful. Humans were still new on the galactic stage. Not brand new, but new enough that people still looked at them like an odd tool they weren't sure how to use. Elias passed through the entry corridor where the walls shifted color, showing soft patterns that calmed most species. A gentle voice in his earpiece spoke in basic English. "Welcome, Observer Mar. Please proceed to Hall 3. He followed the signs. The station was full of quiet movement, floating drones, tall alien assistants, and clusters of diplomats moving like schools of fish, always in groups, always alert. Elias tried to walk like he belonged. Hall 3 was enormous. It looked like a bowl made of dark glass, with a floor that reflected light like still water. Seats were arranged in long, curved lines, facing a raised platform shaped like a half-moon. Above the platform hovered a pale sphere, a translation and recording system known as the lens. Elias scanned his badge at the side entrance. A small green light blinked, and the door opened without sound. Inside, the air smelled faintly metallic but clean. Elias stepped carefully, holding his folder close. Terrans sat in one of the outer sections, far from the center. That was normal. Humans did not get center seats. Yet, a Terran assistant waved him over, then pointed at a place 2 rows above the delegation, an observer strip. "Your seat," she mouthed. Elias nodded. He moved along the row, careful not to bump anyone. Many seats were already filled by species he could barely name. Some wore thin fabric robes, some wore rigid armor-like shapes that looked ceremonial. A few sat inside personal atmosphere bubbles. He reached the spot the assistant had indicated, or he thought he did. The seat was empty, and the row looked like any other row. Elias sat down, placed his folder on his lap, and exhaled. He let his eyes drift around the hall. The lens above the platform shimmered faintly. Translation subtitles would appear as light patterns on the floor for those who used visual language. The whole place felt like a theater where the play had not started yet. Elias glanced at his wrist screen. The opening address would begin in 8 minutes. Plenty of time. Then he noticed the space beside him. It was too open, not empty, open. Like a quiet gap in a crowd, the way water avoids a hot stone. To Elias' left, there was a single seat with a smooth silver frame and a high curved back. Unlike the other seats, it had no visible number, no small plaque, no personal interface panel. Elias frowned. That's odd. He looked down at his own seat. His seat had a number, 14C. He looked at the silver seat. No number. His stomach tightened. He slowly looked behind him and saw several station security officials standing at the far end of the row. They were not armed in any obvious way. They did not need to be. Their posture alone said something is wrong. One of them lifted a hand slightly, palm forward, a small gesture, not a wave, a signal. Elias recognized it from training, stand and step away. Now, his throat went dry. He started to shift forward, about to rise. And the hall changed, not with sound, but with attention. A hush rolled through the air like a curtain dropping. Conversations stopped. Even the drones seemed to hover more carefully. Someone had entered. Elias turned his head toward the central aisle. A procession moved with slow, controlled grace. At the front drifted 2 tall attendants in pale cloaks that looked like woven light. Behind them walked a figure who did not need an announcement. She was not large, not towering, not dramatic in the way some leaders tried to be. She was simply certain. The space around her seemed to agree that she mattered. The Queen of Aurelian. Elias had seen images. Everyone had. The Queen's people were old, respected, and strangely quiet in their power. Their civilization was known for stable trade lanes, calm diplomacy, and a kind of influence that did not shout. The Queen's face was smooth and luminous, like moonstone under a thin veil of skin. Her eyes were dark and steady. Her crown was not a crown of jewels, but a simple ring of metal that floated above her head, turning slowly, catching the light. Elias felt his heart thump harder. Why is she in this hall? He thought, then realized how stupid that was. Of course she was. This was the convocation. But why was she walking toward his row? Security at the end of the row made the standing signal again, sharper this time. A few nearby diplomats shifted, preparing to rise in respect. Elia's legs tried to move. The queen stepped close. Her attendants paused behind her. The world seemed to narrow until Elias could only see her and the strange silver seat beside him. She looked at the seat, then at him. Elias stood halfway, confused and embarrassed. His folder almost slid off his lap. He opened his mouth to apologize, to scramble out, to explain it was a mistake. Before he could, the queen reached out. She took his hand. Her fingers were cool but not cold, light pressure, not a grip, not a hold like a trap, a simple human-like touch. Elias froze. He could feel every eye in the hall turning toward him. The queen's voice came softly, and somehow the lens made it clear in his ear without delay. "Don't get up," she said. Her English was not perfect, but it was careful. "Stay here." Elias stared at her. His mind went blank. His mouth made a sound that was almost a word, but not quite. The queen looked down at their joined hands, then back at him. Her expression did not change, but something in her gaze was relieved. Security at the end of the row stopped moving. Station officials along the walls looked like statues. Some alien delegates leaned forward slightly, as if they had forgotten how to blink. Elias did the only thing he could do. He sat back down. The queen sat in the silver seat beside him without releasing his hand. Her attendants remained behind her, watching the hall with calm faces. Elias' pulse hammered in his ears. His palm felt warm where her fingers rested. He wanted to pull away because that was polite. He wanted to keep still because the queen had told him to. He wanted to disappear. A low chime sounded, calling the hall to order. The convocation was beginning. On the platform, a neutral station speaker approached the central microphone. The speaker was a small, insect-like being in a glass suit, chosen because it offended almost nobody. "Honored delegates," the speaker began, and the lens spread translated patterns across the floor. "Welcome to the 39th Skybridge Convocation. We gather to renew roots, resolve disputes, and confirm the accords." Elias heard the words, but they felt far away. He could sense whispers moving like invisible threads across the hall, not spoken aloud, but traded through private comms and subtle body signals. Why is the queen holding a human's hand? Who is he? Is it a message? A warning? Is he dangerous? Is he important? Elias wanted to raise his free hand and shout, "I'm nobody, I'm literally support staff," but the queen's hand remained steady, not demanding, not threatening. Just there, he tried to breathe slowly. The speaker continued, listing agenda items: shipping tariffs, navigation beacon maintenance, a dispute over mineral claims, nothing dramatic. Then, without warning, the queen leaned slightly toward Elias. Her voice was low, meant only for him. Still, the lens translated it perfectly in his ear. "You are Terran," she said. "Yes," Elias whispered. He did not dare look at her too long. "Yes, your majesty." A pause. "You are calm," the queen said. Elias almost laughed from nerves. Calm was the last thing he felt. "I try," he managed. The queen's fingers shifted just a little, as if adjusting to a more comfortable position. Elias noticed that her hand trembled barely, like a leaf moving in still air. No one else seemed to see it. Elias swallowed. "Are you okay?" That was not something you asked a monarch, not in any guide. But the words came out anyway, soft and sincere. The queen's gaze stayed forward, fixed on the platform. "No," she said quietly. "Not when they watch, not when they wait for weakness." Elias' stomach tightened. He had no idea what she meant, but he understood the feeling of being watched. The convocation hall was full of people who smiled politely while calculating everything. Elias took a careful breath. "Then, why me?" the queen answered after a long moment. "Because you're kind," she said, "does not do the silence the same way." Elias blinked. "I don't understand." The queen turned her head slightly. Her eyes met his for the first time directly. They were not cold, they were tired. "You sit," she said. "You do not hunt attention. You do not perform power, you are simply here." Elias felt a strange pressure in his chest, like he had stepped into a story meant for someone else. "I sat here by accident," he admitted. A faint change touched the queen's face. Not a smile exactly, something close to it. "Yes," she said, "by accident." The speaker on the platform reached a new item. "And now," the station voice announced, "we invite Her Radiance, Queen Aurelian, to deliver the opening address." The hall rose as one, like a wave. Elias started to stand too, out of pure reflex. but the queen's hand tightened gently. "Stay," she said again. So Elias remained seated while an entire galaxy stood around him. The queen rose alone, graceful, still holding his hand for one last second before she released it. She stepped forward toward the platform, her attendants gliding behind her. Elias sat in the quiet shock of what had just happened, feeling every stare burn through him. He looked down at his empty hand. It still felt warm. And in the space where her fingers had been, he realized something that made his skin prickle. For a moment, when she had held him, the queen had not looked like an untouchable ruler. She had looked like someone who needed one steady human presence beside her. On the platform, the queen faced the hall. She began to speak, and Elias knew with a deep, uneasy certainty that whatever came next would not be routine at all. He remembered standing. He remembered sitting when everyone else stood. He remembered the feeling of thousands of eyes turning toward him like heat from a slow fire. The words spoken from the platform slid past his mind without sticking. Only later would he realize how carefully chosen those words had been. When the queen finished, the hall bowed as one. Even species without spines managed a version of respect. The lens dimmed slightly, signaling a short recess before formal negotiations began. Conversation returned in cautious waves. Elias remained seated, unsure what to do with his hands. He folded them, then unfolded them, then rested them on his knees. His heart still beat too fast. The Terran delegation leader, Ambassador Renata Cole, turned in her seat 3 rows ahead. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. She stared directly at Elias, not angry, not proud, concerned. She tapped her wrist once, a Terran signal meaning stay where you are. Elias nodded weakly. Around them, alien delegates whispered through private channels or subtle gestures. Some glanced at Elias openly. Others pretended not to notice him at all, which was worse. 2 rows away, a tall, thin being with a faceted face tilted its head toward him. Its translator projected soft light words across the floor. "Human," it said politely. "Are you designated?" Elias swallowed. "No," he said. "I'm an observer." The being paused. Its eyes flickered in rapid calculation. "Then probability has shifted." It turned away without another word. Elias let out a slow breath. The recess bell chimed again, this time lower and longer. Delegates began to rise and move toward discussion clusters or private alcoves along the walls. Elias started to stand. "Observer Mar." The voice came from behind him. Calm, familiar now, he turned. The queen stood beside her seat again. Her attendants remained at a respectful distance, forming a soft barrier of presence rather than force. "Yes, your majesty," Elias said. "You may walk," she said. "With me." It was not a question. Elias hesitated for half a second, then nodded. "Yes." They stepped into the aisle together. The effect was immediate. Movement slowed around them. Conversations paused. A few delegates subtly adjusted their positions to create space, as if an invisible current flowed outward from the queen. Elias walked carefully, matching her pace. She moved smoothly without hurry. He felt like a child trying not to trip beside a calm adult. They reached a quiet alcove shaped like a curved shell. Soft light filled the space, tuned to neutral wavelengths. A privacy field hummed faintly as it activated. Once inside, the noise of the hall faded into a distant murmur. Elias released a breath he did not realize he had been holding. The queen turned to face him fully. Up close, she looked less distant than she had from the seat. Still powerful, still composed, but there were fine lines near her eyes that did not appear in official images. Signs of long focus, long responsibility. "You are unsettled," she said. "Yes," Elias replied honestly. "Very." She inclined her head slightly. "That is reasonable." Elias hesitated, then spoke before his courage failed. "Your Majesty, I think there has been a mistake. I shouldn't have been seated near you. I don't have authority or training. I don't even know why." "I know," the queen said. The word stopped him cold. "You do?" he asked. "Yes." She folded her hands together, mirroring his earlier nervous habit without seeming to notice. "You were not chosen, that is why you were correct." Elias frowned. "I don't follow." "My people," she said, "plan everything. For centuries we have refined control. We do not allow accident near power." She looked toward the privacy field as if she could see the hall beyond it. "But today the seat was empty, and you sat. And when I approached, you did not reach for status or favor or fear. You reached to leave." Elias shifted his weight. "I didn't want to cause trouble." "Yes," the queen said softly, "that." Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable but full. Elias cleared his throat. "May I ask something?" "You may," she replied. "Why did you hold my hand?" The queen did not answer right away. She looked down at her own fingers, then slowly flexed them, as if remembering the shape of something no longer there. "Because," she said at last, "when I am observed by many minds, I am alone." Elias felt a small chill. "I don't understand." "My species," she explained, "shares thought easily with its own kind. Emotion, intent, memory, but rulers are separated for stability, for safety. I have not felt unfiltered presence in many cycles." She met his eyes again. "Your kind does not shield emotion by default. You leak it even when you try not to." Elias almost smiled despite himself. "We've been told that's a weakness." The queen tilted her head. "It is inefficient," she agreed, "but it is anchoring." A soft chime sounded in Elias' earpiece, a private Terran channel request. "Ambassador Cole," Elias glanced at the queen. "May I?" "Yes," she said. "Answer." He tapped his wrist. "Elias," Ambassador Cole said quietly. Her voice was steady but tight. "Are you all right?" "Yes," he said. "I think so." There was a pause. "Do you know what just happened?" "Not really." Another pause, longer this time. "The queen has not initiated physical contact with a non-Aurelian in recorded history." Elias' mouth went dry. "Oh, yes," Cole said. "Oh, what should I do?" The queen watched him with calm interest, as if curious how humans answered such questions. Ambassador Cole exhaled slowly. "For now, exactly what you're doing, be polite, be honest, and do not promise anything. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am." "And Elias?" "Yes, you're doing fine." The channel closed. Elias looked back at the queen. "My ambassador says I should be polite and honest." The queen's eyes softened slightly. "A strong strategy." A signal light pulsed in the alcove, indicating a request to join the space. The queen did not acknowledge it. Another pulse followed, more urgent. She raised one finger, not toward the light, but toward Elias. "One moment," she said, then spoke toward the field. "Denied." The pulsing stopped. Elias stared. "You can do that?" "Yes," she said simply. He swallowed. "People are going to notice." "They already have." Elias leaned back against the curved wall, careful not to cross any invisible boundary he did not understand. "I don't want to cause political problems." The queen stepped closer, not into his space, but near enough that her presence filled it. "You already have," she said, "but not in the way you fear." She gestured, and the privacy field shimmered. For a brief second, Elias saw glimpses of the hall beyond, delegates forming clusters, lines shifting, alliances recalculating. "My advisors believe humanity is unpredictable," the queen continued. "Too emotional, too individual." Elias nodded. "That's fair." "They believe that makes you dangerous," she said. "And you?" Elias asked. "I believe," the queen said, "that it makes you visible." He frowned. "Visible? You do not hide behind ritual as easily. You show strain, you show doubt. Other species mistake this for weakness." "But it means one thing." "What?" "When you choose," she said, "it is real." Elias thought of Earth, of humans arguing endlessly, failing loudly, caring deeply even when it hurt. "I don't think we always choose well," he said. "No one does," the queen replied. "But you choose together, even when divided." The alcove light shifted, signaling the recess was ending. Elias straightened. "What happens now?" The queen considered him. "Now negotiations begin and you will sit near me again." Elias blinked. "I will." "Yes." "I'm not qualified for that." "You are qualified to be human," she said. "That is sufficient." They walked back toward the hall. This time, Elias felt the attention before they entered. It pressed against him like air before a storm. He kept his head level, his steps steady. They reached their seats. Again, the silver seat beside hers waited. Elias sat. The convocation resumed. Voices rose and fell. Proposals were made. Data flowed. At one point, a delegate spoke sharply about trade imbalance. The queen listened without reacting. Elias noticed her fingers tightening together. Without thinking, he shifted slightly, letting his arm rest against the shared armrest. Not touching, just present. The queen's shoulders lowered a fraction. No one else noticed. But somewhere in the silent calculations of the galaxy, a new variable settled into place. Human presence, unplanned, uncontrolled, and suddenly impossible to ignore. They did not know his name at first. That came later. What they knew was his position, seated beside the Queen of Aurelian, close enough to share space, close enough to matter. This was not normal. Delegates who had attended Skybridge convocations for decades could not remember a single case like it. Observers did not sit near monarchs. Support staff did not become visual symbols. Humans, especially, were not placed at the center of anything important, yet there Elias was, sitting quietly, listening, breathing like an ordinary man while history bent slightly around him. The session focused on navigation rights through the Carroll Drift, a region of space filled with unstable currents. For years, the issue had caused delays, arguments, and polite but firm deadlock. Everyone wanted access. No one wanted responsibility. A tall avian delegate spoke first, its feathers shifting color as it emphasized certain points. The drift is volatile, it said. Any shared route must be managed by a single authority. A cluster of crystalline beings responded with soft harmonic tones, translated by the lens. Single authority leads to imbalance. We propose rotational oversight. The discussion began to circle, as it always did. Elias watched quietly. He did not understand all the technical details, but he understood tone. Frustration, guarded ambition, fear of loss. He glanced sideways. The queen's posture was perfect, but her eyes had grown distant. Her fingers rested together, too still. Elias remembered her words, "When they watch, I am alone." Without thinking too much about it, he leaned slightly closer, not touching, just within human conversational distance. "Do you want water?" he asked softly. The queen turned her head a fraction. "Yes," she said. He signaled a passing service drone. It arrived instantly, dispensing a clear container shaped to Aurelian preference. Elias handed it to her carefully. "Thank you," she said. She drank, her breathing slowed. Across the hall, a few delegates noticed. A murmur spread. The avian delegate paused mid-sentence. The queen raised her hand. "I will speak," she said. The hall quieted at once. "The drift," the queen said, "is unstable because it is overused and understood. Authority will not fix that. Cooperation might." She gestured toward the lens. Data bloomed above the platform, routes, energy patterns, long-term projections. Elias realized something strange. The data was familiar. It was the same model he had reviewed weeks ago as part of Terran logistics prep, a shared access model with layered fail-safes. It had been dismissed as too idealistic. The queen continued, calmly and clearly, explaining the model as if it were obvious. Delegates leaned forward. Questions followed, sharp ones, skeptical ones. The queen answered without strain. Elias noticed that every time tension rose, she shifted slightly toward him, not for advice, not for approval, but for balance, like a climber checking their footing. By the time the session ended, the drift proposal was no longer stalled. It was moving. During the next recess, the alcoves filled quickly. Elias barely had time to stand before two different delegates approached, carefully, respectfully. One was the faceted being from before. "You are not designated," it said again, almost accusingly. "No," Elias replied. "I'm still not. Yet outcomes improve when you are proximal," the being said. "Explain." Elias blinked. "I don't think I'm doing anything." The being studied him. "That is statistically unlikely." Before Elias could answer, another voice joined in. "Humans often affect systems without intention." This speaker was a soft-bodied aquatic species contained in a mobile tank. Its translator spoke in slow, flowing tones. "You regulate," it continued, "by existing." Elias rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm really just sitting." "Exactly," the aquatic delegate said. They drifted away before Elias could respond. He stood there unsettled. "I didn't ask for this," he thought, but the galaxy did not seem to care. Later that cycle, a private request arrived for the Queen, priority level, multiple seals. Elias noticed the tension return to her shoulders before she even opened it. She dismissed her attendants and looked at Elias. "Stay," she said. "I will," he replied without hesitation. The message unfolded in the air between them, visible only within the privacy field. A coalition of mid-tier powers was questioning the Queen's recent decisions. Politely, carefully, but the meaning was clear. They believed her judgment was compromised by a human. "They will ask me to explain you," the Queen said. Elias felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "I can leave," he offered quickly, "if that helps." The Queen looked at him for a long moment. "No," she said. "If you leave now, their assumption becomes truth." Elias swallowed. "Then what do we do?" "We answer honestly." That worried him more than any political maneuver. The meeting took place in a secondary chamber. No audience, no lens, just representatives, the Queen and Elias. The coalition speaker, a segmented being with a polished surface, spoke first. "Your Radiance," it said, "your recent choices show deviation from established Aurelian patterns." Yes, the Queen replied, they do. You have allowed unscreened proximity, the being continued. This suggests external influence. The Queen did not look at Elias when she answered. It suggests, she said, that I am adapting. Silence followed. The speaker turned its attention to Elias for the first time. Human, it said, state your function. Elias took a breath. He remembered Ambassador Cole's advice. Be polite, be honest, do not promise anything. I'm a logistics observer, he said. My job is to notice small problems before they become big ones. The speaker processed this. You influence the Queen. Elias considered his words carefully. I don't tell her what to do. Yet she performs differently, the speaker pressed. Elias nodded slowly. I think I help her think out loud by being here. The coalition members exchanged subtle signals. The Queen finally looked at him. Elias met her gaze, steady but nervous. I don't want power, he said. I don't want favors, I didn't plan this, but I won't pretend I'm not here. The Queen straightened. He speaks truly, she said. His presence does not command, it stabilizes. And if others demand the same, the speaker asked. If humans become required for governance. Elias felt the question hit like a wave. The Queen answered before he could. Then, she said, you will learn what humanity already lives with. The speaker tilted. Which is, being seen, the Queen said, fully, without armor. The meeting ended without resolution, but also without censure. That alone was a victory. When they returned to the hall, Elias felt different, not proud, not afraid, aware. He was a variable now. During the final session of the day, a minor dispute flared between two trade blocks. Voices sharpened, data clashed, the room grew tight. Elias noticed his own shoulders tense. He breathed out slowly. The Queen felt it. She mirrored the breath. Her voice, when she spoke, cut through the tension without force. The dispute softened. Compromise appeared. Elias stared ahead, stunned. He was not leading. He was not deciding. But somehow being human, being visibly, imperfectly human, was changing the shape of power around him. As the session closed, Ambassador Cole approached him quietly. You're becoming a problem, she said. Elias winced. Bad problem? She shook her head. A necessary one. He looked back at the Queen, who was speaking with her attendants, composed and calm. What happens after this? He asked. Cole followed his gaze. That, she said, depends on whether the galaxy can accept a truth it's avoided for a long time. What truth? That strength doesn't always come from control, she said. Sometimes it comes from letting someone sit beside you and reminding you you're not alone. Elias sat down again as the lights dimmed. The silver seat waited. So did the future. No announcement was made. No decree was issued. But the seating chart was adjusted. Security protocols shifted by small degrees. Discussion schedules were rewritten with subtle care. And always, beside the Queen of Aurelian, there was a human. Elias Mar woke that cycle with a tight feeling in his chest. His room aboard the station was small and clean, designed for short stays. He sat on the edge of the sleeping platform longer than usual, staring at his hands. They still felt ordinary. That frightened him more than anything else. When he arrived at Hall 3, the attention came immediately. Not stares anymore, those had softened into something more careful, measuring, curious. He took his seat beside the Queen without comment. Good rest? She asked quietly. Yes, Elias said, then after a pause, no, but enough. The Queen nodded as if she understood exactly what he meant. The session opened with economic forecasts, then moved into cultural exchange standards, usually a dull subject. Usually, today it was not. A delegate from the Nareth Combine rose. Their species was known for efficiency and strict hierarchy. Their voice was smooth and precise. We propose, the delegate said, a formal assessment of the human variable. The hall went very still. Elias felt his spine straighten without his permission. The Queen did not react at first. She waited, letting the words settle. Clarify, she said. The delegate inclined its head. Human proximity has correlated with measurable changes in diplomatic outcomes, reduced conflict cycles, increased concession rates, improved emotional regulation in certain leadership figures. The delegate's gaze shifted briefly to Elias. We request controlled study. Elias' mouth went dry. The Queen's voice remained calm. Study of what kind? Isolation, the delegate replied. Replication, removal. Elias felt the word removal echo in his head. Before he could stop himself, he leaned forward slightly. I don't consent to that. A ripple passed through the hall. Observers did not speak in sessions like this. Humans especially did not interrupt. The Queen turned toward him. Say it again, she said gently. I don't consent, Elias repeated, quieter but firmer. I'm not a resource. The Narath delegate paused. Your consent is not required for observational. It is, the Queen said. Her voice did not rise. It did not need to. This human is under my protection, she continued, and under his own agency. The hall stirred, data lights flickered, private channels opened and closed like quick breaths. The delegate tried again. Your radiance, emotional attachment may impair. Enough, the Queen said. She stood, the entire hall followed, as if pulled upward by a single motion. You speak of impairment, she said, addressing the room now. But you ignore outcome, you ignore stability. You ignore the fact that for the first time in many cycles, this hall resolves rather than delays. She gestured lightly toward Elias. This human does not command me, he reminds me. Of what? Someone asked from the back. The Queen answered without hesitation. Of consequence. The session ended early. That alone told everyone how serious the moment had been. In the quiet that followed, Elias remained seated, his heart pounding. I shouldn't have spoken, he said. The Queen looked down at him. You spoke when it mattered. Later, in a secured corridor away from the hall, Ambassador Cole met them. Her expression was controlled, but her jaw was tight. They're pushing, she said. Harder than before. Elias nodded. I noticed. They want to standardize you, Cole continued. Turn you into a system. A role, something repeatable. Elias leaned against the wall. I can't be that. No, Cole agreed, and that scares them. The Queen listened, silent. They will propose alternatives, Cole said. Other humans, trained ones, conditioned ones. Elias felt a chill. That won't work. The Queen tilted her head. Explain. Elias took a moment, simple English, honest words. You can't train what I'm doing, he said. I don't even know how I'm doing it. If someone sits here thinking about performance, it changes everything. Cole nodded slowly. That's the problem and the advantage. That evening, the Queen requested a private walk along the station's outer gallery. The stars beyond the transparent wall drifted slowly, distant and quiet. You are afraid, she said as they walked. Yes, Elias admitted, not for myself. For what they might turn this into. They cannot replicate you, the Queen said. Elias stopped walking. They'll try. Yes, she said, but they will fail. Why are you so sure? He asked. She faced him. Because you are not performing a function, you are being. Elias laughed once, short and nervous. That's not very reassuring. It is to me, she replied. They stood in silence for a while, watching a blue star pulse far away. Why did your people separate rulers? Elias asked finally. The Queen answered slowly. Because shared emotion amplifies risk. One fear can become many, one doubt can spread. And now? Elias asked. Now, she said, I carry doubt alone, and that is heavier. Elias thought of leaders on Earth, isolated by distance, by expectation, by image. I think, he said carefully, humans never really solved that. We just accept the mess. The Queen considered this. You accept weakness. We accept reality, Elias corrected. She gave a small, thoughtful nod. The next day, the proposal arrived, formal, polite, dangerous. A rotating human liaison program. Volunteers, oversight, safeguards. Elias read the document twice, then a third time. They're trying to make this safe, he said. They are trying to make it controllable, the Queen replied. Ambassador Cole folded her arms. If we refuse outright, it looks defensive. If we accept, we lose what makes this work. Elias stared at the words. What if I leave? He asked quietly. Both women turned to him. If I'm gone, he continued, they can't use me as proof of concept. The Queen's expression changed just slightly. That would validate their assumption, she said, that you were an anomaly to be removed. Elias exhaled. So what's the option? The Queen looked at him steadily. We ask the question they fear. What question? She placed her hand flat against the document. What happens, she said, if humanity cannot be reduced? The presentation took place that cycle. No speeches, no data storms, just the Queen standing before the hall with Elias seated beside her. You wish to understand the human effect, she said, so I will tell you what it is not. She gestured to Elias. He is not trained, he is not optimized, he is not controlled. A pause. He is choosing to be here. Murmurs spread. You cannot assign that, the Queen continued. You cannot automate it, you cannot isolate it without destroying it. She looked across the hall. If you wish to invite humans into governance, you must accept uncertainty, discomfort, presence without guarantee. Silence followed. Then Elias stood. He did not plan to. His legs moved before his thoughts caught up. I won't be studied, he said simply, but I won't hide either. If you want humans involved, ask us, don't take us. His voice shook, but he did not stop. We're bad at pretending, he said. Good at showing up, that's the deal. No one spoke. The Queen sat back down. The hall did not erupt. It did not protest. It absorbed. Later, as the lights dimmed and delegates dispersed, Ambassador Cole let out a slow breath. They didn't reject it, she said. They didn't accept it either, Elias replied. That's progress, she said. Elias looked at the silver seat beside the Queen. It no longer felt like an accident. It felt like a choice. And choices, he was beginning to understand, were the most powerful thing humans brought with them into the stars. That alone made Elias uneasy. No early announcements. No formal objections. No urgent summons. The hall opened on time, the lights settled into their calm glow, and delegates took their seats as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Elias felt at the moment he sat down beside the Queen. The air was too careful, too balanced. Like a room where everyone had decided to stop speaking at once. You feel it, the Queen said softly. Yes, Elias replied, they're thinking. They have always thought, she said. Now they are unsure. That was worse. The agenda moved forward, but discussion was different now. Delegates asked questions instead of making demands. They left pauses instead of filling silence. They watched Elias not with suspicion, but with something closer to evaluation. Not of him, of humanity. The first real test came during the mid-session negotiation block. A resource-sharing agreement between three systems had stalled for decades. It was not dramatic. No shouting, no threats, just quiet refusal layered over polite language. Today, the Nareth Combine was leading the discussion. The same delegate as before rose again. We propose, it said, a pilot framework. The Queen's posture tightened almost imperceptibly. A limited trial, the delegate continued, of human presence during high-level negotiations, voluntary, supervised. Elias felt the word supervised land like a weight. Ambassador Cole, seated several rows ahead, did not turn around, but Elias knew she was listening closely. The Queen did not respond immediately. Clarify, she said at last. The human seated beside you, the delegate said, would be requested for select sessions under defined conditions. Elias leaned forward. Requested by whom? The delegate looked at him directly. By consensus. Elias shook his head. That's not consent, that's pressure. A murmur ran through the hall. The delegate replied calmly, You are influencing galactic stability. That carries responsibility. Elias opened his mouth, then closed it. He felt the weight of it now. Not attention, not fear, expectation, the Queen spoke. He is not an instrument, she said, nor a service. Then what is he? The delegate asked. Elias answered before she could. I'm a person, he said, and I'm allowed to say no. Silence followed. The delegate processed this. Refusal would be noted. Elias nodded. That's fine. The Queen turned toward him. You are certain? She asked quietly. Elias met her gaze. I won't be scheduled, I won't be rotated, I won't be owned by a framework. The Queen inclined her head. Then so it shall be. The proposal was withdrawn, but Elias did not feel relief. He felt the shift. Later, in a quiet corridor, Ambassador Cole caught up to him. Her expression was serious but not angry. You did the right thing, she said. I don't know, Elias replied. I might have just closed a door. You kept one open, she corrected. On your terms. Elias leaned against the wall. What if they go around me? What if they try to pick someone else? They will, Cole said, and they will fail. How do you know? Because they're trying to copy an outcome without accepting the cause. Elias frowned. Which is, Cole smiled faintly, freedom. That night, Elias could not sleep. The station hummed softly around him. Outside his window, stars drifted like distant thoughts. He kept seeing the faces in the hall. Not angry, not hostile, calculating. They were not asking what Elias did. They were asking what humans were. The next cycle, the Queen requested Elias' presence earlier than usual. They met not in the hall, but in a quiet observation chamber overlooking the station's inner ring. I will ask you something difficult, she said. Okay, Elias replied. If I asked you to leave, she said, would you? Elias felt his chest tighten. Why would you? To protect you, she said, and perhaps to protect this process. Elias thought carefully. If you ask me, he said slowly, I'll listen, but if the reason is fear of others, then no. The Queen studied him. You do not fear consequence, she said. I do, Elias replied. I just don't think fear should decide everything. A long silence followed. My people, the Queen said, would have chosen safety. Elias nodded. We usually choose mess. She gave a soft, thoughtful sound, not quite laughter. Later that day, a private message arrived from an unexpected source. The Faceted Speaker Collective. They requested a meeting with Elias alone. Ambassador Cole objected immediately. No unsupervised access. They are not threatening, Elias said. They're curious. That's worse, Cole replied. The Queen considered the request, then nodded. I will be near, she said, but you may choose. Elias agreed. The meeting space was small and neutral. The faceted being waited alone, its surface reflecting soft light. You persist in refusal, it said. Yes, Elias replied, I do. You disrupt predictive models, it said, yet outcomes improve. I'm not trying to improve outcomes, Elias said. I'm just being honest. The being tilted slightly. Honesty is inefficient. Maybe, Elias said. But it's hard to fake. The being paused. Your species resists optimization. We resist being simplified, Elias corrected. Another pause. Then governance with humans introduces instability, the being said. Yes, Elias agreed. And yet, it said, instability has decreased. Elias smiled faintly. Welcome to the problem. The being considered this. Conclusion, it said, human participation requires acceptance of variance. Yes, Elias said, that's the price. The being inclined its head. Noted. The meeting ended without demands. That evening, something unexpected happened. During an open forum, a minor delegate, small, nervous, easily overlooked, stood and spoke. Our people, it said, have long avoided direct voice. We defer, we adapt. But observing this human, we wish to request a seat. The hall went quiet. A seat, someone asked. Beside our representative, the delegate said. Not to advise, just to be. Whispers spread, then another voice joined. And ours. And ours, not humans, others. Species who had been silent for generations were asking for presence. Not power, presence. Elias felt a lump rise in his throat. The Queen stood. You see, she said to the hall, the effect was never human alone. She gestured gently. It was permission. The request was not denied. It was deferred, but the seed had been planted. Later, Elias sat beside the Queen as the lights dimmed. I didn't plan any of this, he said. No, the Queen replied, but you allowed it. He looked at his hands again, still ordinary. I'm scared, he admitted. As am I, the Queen said, but not of you. Elias looked at her. What happens next? He asked. The Queen's gaze moved across the hall where alliances were shifting in quiet, careful ways. Now, she said, they must decide if they can rule without hiding. Elias leaned back in his seat. For the first time since he had arrived, he did not feel like an accident. He felt like a mirror. And the galaxy, slowly and unwillingly, was beginning to look at itself. It felt like a turning point. Elias could sense it the moment he entered Hall 3. The air was heavy, not with tension, but with awareness. Delegates were no longer pretending this was routine. Too many patterns had broken, too many old rules had failed quietly. He took his seat beside the Queen. For the first time, no one questioned it. No whispers, no sharp glances, just acceptance, careful and uneasy. You have changed the room, the Queen said softly. Elias shook his head. The room changed itself, I just didn't move out of the way. She considered that. That may be the same thing. The session opened with a matter no one had expected to reach the floor. Governance structure, not trade, not borders, not roots, power itself. A senior delegate from the Triune Accord rose. Old, respected, known for patience. For many cycles, the delegate said, we have ruled through distance, through layers, through systems designed to remove individual influence. The delegate paused. This convocation has shown us a flaw. The hall was silent. When leaders are isolated, the delegate continued, they become abstract. When they are abstract, their choices drift from consequence. Eyes turned, slowly, deliberately toward Elias. And when consequence is made visible, the delegate said, even unintentionally, decisions change. The Queen did not move. Elias felt his chest tight. We propose a question, the delegate said, one we have avoided. It looked directly at the Queen. Who watches the powerful when the systems fail? A murmur spread, low and uncertain. The Queen stood. I am watched constantly, she said, by advisors, by censors, by history. Yes, the delegate replied, but never by someone who does not need you. That hit harder than any accusation. Elias felt it land in his own chest too. The Queen did not deny it. That is true, she said. Silence followed, heavy, honest. Then something unexpected happened. The Queen turned to Elias. Will you stand? She asked. Elias froze. Every instinct told him this was wrong, dangerous, unscripted, but he stood. The queen addressed the hall. "This human does not rely on my favor," she said. "He cannot be punished by me. He cannot be rewarded in ways that would bind him." She placed one hand lightly on the back of his seat. "That is why his presence matters," a delegate spoke from the side. "Then he holds power over you." The queen shook her head. "No, he holds nothing." She looked at Elias. "Tell them." Elias swallowed. His throat was dry. "I don't decide anything," he said. "I don't vote. I don't command." He looked around the hall. "But if I'm sitting next to someone who makes a choice, I have to live with it, and they know that." The room absorbed this slowly. "That's it," Elias said. "That's all I am." A reminder that decisions touch people. No applause, no reaction, just thought. The triune delegate inclined its head. Then the question becomes unavoidable. "What question?" someone asked. "Can power accept being seen?" the delegate said, "without control?" The hall did not answer, because there was no easy answer. The pressure came later. That evening Elias was summoned, not by the queen, not by Ambassador Cole, but by the station council. A neutral body, supposedly. The chamber was small, circular, balanced. 6 representatives waited. "Observer Mar," one said, "you have created an unstable condition." Elias nodded. "Yes." "You are not authorized," another said. "Also yes." "Yet removal would escalate instability," a third admitted. Elias did not speak. The first speaker leaned forward. "We need you to choose." Elias frowned. "Choose what?" "Remain," the speaker said, "under defined constraints. And if I do, then we will ask the queen to sever proximity." Elias felt the weight of it settle. This was not an order. It was leverage. "I won't be constrained," Elias said quietly. The speakers exchanged looks. "You misunderstand," one said. "This is not punishment, it is protection." "For who?" Elias asked. The room did not answer. Elias stood. "If staying means being controlled," he said, "then I can't stay." The council speaker stiffened. "You would abandon the queen?" Elias shook his head. "No, I would respect her enough not to become a tool." The meeting ended without resolution, but the message had been sent. Later that cycle, the queen found Elias alone in the outer gallery. "You were pressured," she said. "Yes." "You refused." "Yes." She watched the stars for a long moment. "My advisors urge me to separate us," she said. "They fear precedent." Elias nodded. "I understand." "I do not want to," she added. Elias turned toward her. "Then don't, but don't keep me if it costs you what you are." The queen looked at him, truly looked. "You are asking me to risk my authority." "I'm asking you to trust it," Elias said. That night the queen made her decision. The final session began with a full hall, every seat filled, no one absent. The queen rose. "I have heard the concerns," she said. "I have considered removal, regulation, replication." She paused. "I reject them." A wave of reaction rippled through the hall. "I will not isolate myself to preserve comfort," she continued, "nor will I bind another being to make my rule easier." She gestured toward Elias. "He remains by choice, and so do I," a delegate stood. "Then what of the future?" The queen answered calmly. "The future will be uncertain," she said, "and more honest." She looked around the hall. "If you wish to rule without consequence, you may leave." No one moved. "If you wish to rule while being seen," she said, "then stay." Silence stretched. Then slowly one delegate sat back down, then another. The choice had been made, not unanimously, but enough. Later, as the hall emptied, Elias sank into his seat. His legs felt weak. "You could have lost everything," he said to the queen. "Yes," she replied. "But I would have lost myself otherwise." He smiled faintly. "Humans do that calculation a lot." She looked at him. "And survive." "Sometimes," Elias said. "Sometimes we change," the queen nodded. "So will we." As the lights dimmed for the last time, Elias realized something. The galaxy was not changing because of him. It was changing because it had been forced to answer a question it could no longer avoid. What happens when power can no longer hide? The answer was coming, and it would change everything. No alarms, no emergency sessions. No raised voices echoing through the halls. The station moved with slow purpose, like it knew something important was ending, and something else was beginning. Elias Mar stood in his room and adjusted his jacket for the third time. It still felt strange to wear the same simple clothes while knowing half the galaxy now recognized his face. He was still an observer, still support staff, still human. When he entered Hall 3 for the last time, the room felt different, not tense, not careful, open. Delegates spoke freely now, without the layers of distance that had once shaped every word. Some sat closer to one another than before. Some had brought aides who were not advisors, not guards, just people. Elias walked to the silver seat beside the Queen of Aurelian. No one questioned it. The Queen arrived moments later. She did not make a grand entrance. She simply walked in, acknowledged the hall with a small nod, and took her seat, beside Elias. "You slept?" she asked softly. "A little," Elias said. "Enough," she nodded. "That seems to be humanity's way." The lens brightened above the platform. The final session began. The agenda was short. No trade disputes, no border lines, no resource claims, just one item: future protocols of governance presence. The Triune Accord delegate stood again. This time its voice carried less certainty and more honesty. "We will not pretend unanimity," it said. "Some here believe this convocation has gone too far." A few delegates shifted, but no one objected. "Others believe it has not gone far enough," the delegate continued. "But all agree on one outcome." It paused. "The old model cannot return unchanged." That statement settled over the hall like a deep breath. The delegate continued. "We propose recognition of a new principle, not a law, not a mandate." Elias leaned forward slightly. "A principle of presence," the delegate said. "That leadership may no longer require isolation to be legitimate." Soft murmurs followed. "Presence may be human," the delegate clarified. "Or otherwise, it may be chosen, not assigned. It may be refused." The delegate looked directly at Elias. "It will never be compulsory." Elias felt a tight knot in his chest loosen. The Queen rose. "I accept this principle," she said, "not as ruler alone, but as participant." She turned slightly toward Elias, though she did not look at him yet. "And I acknowledge," she continued, "that this began with an accident." A faint ripple of sound moved through the hall, something like quiet agreement. The Queen finally looked at Elias. "You sat where you did not belong," she said gently. "And instead of reaching for power, you tried to leave." Elias felt his face warm. "That mattered," she said, "more than any preparation." She faced the hall again. "Let this be remembered," the Queen said, "not as a human intervention, but as a reminder that leadership is not meant to be born alone." The lens dimmed slightly, marking the end of formal proceedings. No applause followed. Instead, something better happened. Delegates stood, not all at once, not in perfect order, but together. They bowed, inclined, gestured, acknowledged one another as equals. The convocation was over. Later, as the hall emptied and the station lights shifted to evening mode, Elias remained seated for a moment, staring at the silver armrest beside him. "It's done," he said quietly. "Yes," the Queen replied, "it is." Ambassador Cole approached, her expression tired but satisfied. "You've been officially reassigned," she said. Elias blinked. "To what?" She smiled. "To whatever you want to do next, with one condition." He raised an eyebrow. "There's always a condition." "You don't become a symbol," she said. "You stay human." Elias laughed softly. "That might be the hardest part." The Queen stood. Elias rose too, unsure if he should follow. She turned toward him and did something no one expected. She held out her hand, not as command, not as request, as invitation. Elias hesitated only a second before taking it. Her grip was steady, warm. "Walk with me," she said. They moved slowly through the now quiet hall. A few remaining delegates paused to watch, not with awe, but with recognition. At the edge of the chamber, the Queen stopped. "This is where our paths change," she said. Elias nodded. "I figured." "You will return to your people," she said. "They will ask you what happened here." Elias smiled faintly. "I won't know how to explain it." "Tell them the truth," she said. "That you sat, that you listened, that you stayed." He considered that. "And you?" "I will rule," the Queen said. "Differently." She released his hand, then paused. "Before you go," she said, "there is one thing." "Yes." She looked at him, not as monarch, not as symbol, but as herself. "When you sat beside me," she said, "for the first time in many cycles, I was not performing." Elias swallowed. "I'm glad." "So am I," she replied. They stood in silence for a moment longer, then the Queen stepped back. "Stay here," she said. Elias smiled. "I will," he replied, "just not in the way anyone expects." He turned and walked toward the exit. No escort, no title. Just a human leaving a room that would never be the same. Weeks later, on Earth, Elias sat in a small cafe near a transit hub. People passed by, busy with ordinary lives. No one stared, no one bowed. He liked it that way. His wrist screen chimed softly. A message. From Aurelian Channel, private. It contained no formal greeting, just a single line. "The council met today. We argued, we listened. We chose." Elias smiled and typed back. Good, that means it's working. He put the screen away and lifted his cup. Around him, humanity continued, loud, messy, imperfect, present. Far across the stars, a queen ruled without hiding. And between them, a quiet truth had taken root in the galaxy. Power did not rise because humans were stronger. It changed because humans stayed. And sometimes that was enough.